Kicking off the list at number 10, Thanos. Uh-oh, this is why you never skip leg day. Ever. Kicking this part 2 off on a weird but fun note, Thanos was a minor character in the 1991 What The series. A minor character with a major change. This comic run showed us some insane alternate realities. Like the same issue Thanos comes in, there's also the mean cuisine. And his body is a watermelon. Just wacky comic book fun. 11 pages later, we meet the Mad Titan who could easily squish mean cuisine between his legs. The evil star-spanning destroyer of the worlds, Thanos, not to be confused with the postal worker who must also have some pretty incredibly thick thighs, I guess. Even in this universe, Thanos was still trying to win over death at the New Year's Eve party. Just do squats in the garage, that'll probably work. You'll get some people's attention. Number 9, animated series Thanos. The first version of the Mad Titan outside of the comics wasn't around for too long, sadly. See, the Silver Surfer animated series came out in February 1998, the same animation style as X-Men, but after just one season, it was scrapped. The season did end, of course, on a cliffhanger involving Thanos. Thanos' brother in this storyline was Mentor, and they were sons of the scientist supreme of the Titan system. Each were genetically engineered for different reasons. See, Mentor was meant to study and learn. As his name would probably hint, he hit the books, while Thanos was made to punish and avenge. Thanos wasn't fitting in, so the philosophers of Wynn are like, hey, why don't we just send Thanos to planet Zenn-La? Maybe he'll learn a little something there. And he did. He learned to become a disciple of Lady Chaos, and he would have these loving conversations with her being a statue, of course. More like a podcast, one-sided conversation. He was just letting things out, I guess. He was getting nothing back, nothing but red receipts from a stone, so he thought, okay, I'll get her attention by wreaking havoc across the universe. That ought to work. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. We're talking about Thanos, some dark futures. It's a part 2. Add some light into it. Hit that thumbs up, then we can all smile and move on together. Back to the list. Number 8, Thanos' doppelganger. When the dark side of Adam Warlock, Magus, was out trying to conquer the cosmos, he first thought it would be beneficial to create doppelgangers of all of our heroes and villains. The doppelgangers are usually obvious, you know, they're evil clones of whatever character they're supposed to be, but when he created a Thanos clone, he looked identical to the real one. He didn't have like arms hanging out of his head or anything, he was just another Thanos. So now Magus has Thanos as a sidekick, which sounds like a duo I try and avoid, but like the real Thanos, this Shade version too wanted to conquer. In Infinity War issue 5, both Titans come face to face and decide to team up and take down the Magus. But in usual comic book fashion, in order to penetrate the door into the Magus throne room, one of them, just one of them, had to perish. So they both fought, they monologued, and finally doppelganger Thanos goes astral and then becomes a butterfly. Lovely, how lovely is that? This sounds great, and it is, for a moment. That is until real Thanos eats the butterfly in order to regain lost portions of his personality. You're not you when you're hungry. Number 7, What If? These are always so fun to do, and with What If premiering this week on Disney+, we have to include this bizarre version of the Mad Titan. In What If Volume 2, Issue 34, Thanos defeats Galactus, or rather, he's able to change him back into a human being. Thanos conquers the cosmos, and Galactus was reborn as a king. The king of rock and roll, that is. You gotta love what ifs. Galactus, of course, had his memory wiped after this rebirth, so when he's born again in Kansas, he just begins a rock and roll career. I mean, what else is there to do in Kansas besides that, I guess? When Adam Warlock stopped Thanos, Galactus had the choice. He had the choice to continue rocking out or get back to his planet-eating days. Even the Watcher at this point takes a break observing, and then he listens to his favorite hits. Number 6, Thermos. Another gem, this time coming from the 1988 What The series. Here, he's the master of space, time, and barbecue sauce. Okay, the 3 most important things in the universe right there, I guess. In issue 24, right on the cover, we meet Thermos. It's a fun roast of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. Well, this time it's the Infinity Mitten. Can't really snap in it, you'd be like... And it starts off with Thermos and Mephisto planning a double date with Death and her sister, Taxes. The weirdest part would be that, I mean, sure, this comic is a fun parody, it's all fun and games, but he's still evil. He plans on using the Infinity Mitt so he can barbecue Earth's mightiest. Puns aside, that's pretty horrible. With barbecue sauce too? Like, are you gonna like lather them up? This guy's twisted. Number 5, Thanos clone. When Thanos appears in She-Hulk Volume 2, Issue 13, titled Minefield, you'd think it would be the end of the world, or the end of a world in general somewhere. That's usually how these interactions go, but when Jen notices Thanos is acting a little off, she volunteers to enter his mind. She gets Moondragon to send her in and see if Thanos is telling lies about this testimony. Moondragon warns Jen, however, that this place, these mind trials, are the purest of psychic planes. So like Nightmare on Elm Street, if you die in there, you also die in real life. Shock. Horror. The fear. She gets in, physical body is moving well, but Thanos feels her presence in his mind. A massive dream fight takes place, well rather a massive beatdown takes place. An evil version of Thanos, but definitely not the strongest. Number 4. Omega Thanos. Moving on to a bit bigger version of Thanos, appearing in the Infinity Abyss storyline, Omega, or Armor, was a clone Thanos created in order to go toe-to-toe with possible enemies. He needed a big bad bodyguard or 4, but these clones weren't cutting it. They were considered a failure with their destructive qualities, although it's pretty on the nose with Thanos. But when a meteor freed all these clones, they all thought, well, we're out, let's just work together and end the universe ourselves. Okay, let's do it, gang. They thought Adam Warlock was the secret ingredient, so they schemed and fought other heroes, but this Omega Thanos, he was just looking for a midnight snack. He would much rather build up his own power and feed off planets. I mean, that's the Galactus way. Omega Thanos died in space after following Atliza Landgun to another planet, and once there, Thanos teleported everybody back to Earth, while remote control ships rained fire on the big bad. Number 3. Mystic. Also appearing in the 2002 Infinity Abyss storyline, Mystic, you could probably guess is a clone of Thanos with a magical touch. Thanos, but he meditates. Perfect. What could go wrong? So again, this clone, as well as others, were considered a failure, but when they were all out and broken free, they each had their own plan of attack. Energy trails appeared all around Earth, so Mystic and some other clones went to investigate. Mystic is actually the one that sent Omega Thanos to stop Gamora from teaming up with real Thanos. That's why we had to include them when we're talking about the clones, without going too deep into the Cloneverse. So Mystic went head to head with Doctor Strange and Adam Warlock, and let's be honest, he didn't stand a chance. As cool as the Mad Titan Supreme sounds, it's still no match for Strange. Number 2. Terraxia. First appearing in issue 3 of Infinity Gauntlet, Terraxia was created by Thanos himself. Right after Death had turned her back on the Mad Titan, he needed something to do with that Infinity Gauntlet, so he made himself a partner, an equal. When the Avengers arrived to Thanos' space palace in the following issue, we see what she's capable of, and it's nothing short of terrifying. She beat Spider-Man to death with a rock and then took the head off of Iron Man. She remained alive until issue 5. Nebula took the gauntlet from Thanos, undid all that death the Mad Duo had done, and then teleported them both back into deep space. Thing is, when Thanos was making his weird science girlfriend, he forgot to include the whole breathing in space feature, so she died quickly. Thanos has a weird 15 seconds here. He's like, ah, damn, my partner's dead. I'll be alive though, floating in space, alone. I guess I'll have time to reflect, and then right away he gets sucked through a portal. No time to mourn whatsoever. And finally, coming in at number 1, Endgame Thanos, aka 2014 Thanos. This is the Mad Titan before he got the Space and Power Stone, or well, all the stones, and then snapped away half the universe. When we see him in Infinity War, he's already got 2 out of the 6 stones, but not this time around. The last time we saw the Space Stone was over 2 years ago, earlier in Thanos' time, when Loki attacked New York. So Thanos doesn't even have a gauntlet yet because he seems almost more powerful without it. With the stones, Thanos is cocky. He tricks the Guardians while he gets the reality stones. He monologues in their faces, he's walking around. In Endgame though, he has the sword, he's wearing armor, and he's determined as hell still at this point. The stones are about to be literally handed to him, and he's not going down without a fight. He breaks Cap's shield, he pushes Stormbreaker into Thor's chest, and then he grabs an Infinity Stone with his bare hands. He's absolutely nuts. He's committed, but he's nuts. Kicking off the list at number 10. Zombie Thanos. The opening of Avengers Infinity War showed the Hulk getting beat down by Thanos, but in Marvel Zombies, it's actually the other way around. Earth 2149 Thanos, aka Prunchin, got hit with the zombie plague 40 years after it had started. After this point, he teamed up with the also infected Galactus at the edge of the known universe, good spot to hang out, and then he was still upset at the Hulk in this comic, and he was mad that the Green Goliath had eaten more than his fair share. Like when you split nachos with your buddies at a bar and then you get stuck with the dry ass disregarded chips. It's not cool. Definitely a fight's gonna happen, especially having the appetite of a zombie. So Thanos gets in the Hulk's face and the Hulk literally claps his head to smithereens, and then he says, now there's a reason to eat for 2. That's the darkest thing I've ever heard. But before we go into some other powerful versions of Thanos, if you want to lighten the mood a little bit after that last one, maybe click that thumbs up. That would be amazing, because those clicks really do go a long way for us here at the studio. You're the best. Now back to the Titan. Number 9. Captain America Thanos. In What If Infinity, released back in 2015, we see Thanos join the good side. Okay, a little bit better start this time around. Cap's shield never looked so small before. Wow. So how the hell did this happen? Well, when the builders were threatening the universe, Emperor Jason convinces the Avengers to go and team up with the Great Titan. Doesn't that sound like a wonderful, wonderful idea? So Thanos is evil in most of these realities, so he did have a trick up his sleeve. So once Captain America realized Thanos was just using them to free his son from the builders, Thanos killed Cap and then took his vibranium shield. He killed them and then robbed him. How rude. He then told the rest of the team that Cap lost his life protecting the galaxy whilst fighting the builders, and that the shield was passed along to him in order to carry on. What a liar. And the Avengers are like, okay. They believe him, and the issue ends with Thanos himself yelling, "Avengers assemble." Oh, my heart. You had us in the first half. Number 8. Ultimate Thanos. First appearing in Ultimate Fantastic Four issue 35, Thanos in the Ultimate Universe is a ruler of the Endless Resurgence, this empire on a planet Acheron, which is also consisted of thousands of other worlds on other planes of existence. So he's overlooking a lot of stuff, basically. A little bit more powerful than a vibranium shield this time around, that's for sure. Before all of this ruling, that cosmic cube ended up landing on this planet. Thanos did find it, and he used it to dominate the will of any being who dared to oppose him. His psychic powers give him the ability to know all the events happening star systems away. He knows all. He's like Santa Claus, but a little bit more jacked and a little bit more purple and scarier. Ultimate Thanos resembles Jack Kirby's dark side. I mean, even looking at him is terrifying. He can control your mind too, even being that far away. He can use your body as a vessel, until his mind gets tired and then he just leaves you to die on your own. Plus the ability to rise from the dead. I mean, this list is just starting to get intimidating. My god. Number 7. Thanos side. I mean, sure, that last version may have looked like Darkseid, but imagine if the two villains merged. Well, trouble ensues. Back in the 90s, Marvel and DC joined forces and the Amalgam Universe was born. Super Soldier was Captain America and Superman, which is quite the combo. But then there's also Thanos side. He was the proud ruler of Apocalypse, and his main goal, of course, was to wipe out the entire universe, find the anti-life nullifier, and win over Lady Death. Sounds like a flawless plan, easy peasy. Now, he wasn't alone during his quest. He did team up with the evil Dr. Doomsday during Secret Crisis to wreak havoc across the cosmos. To see the evil dictator in action, start with Bullets and Bracelets, issue 1. Number 6. Poison Thanos. In our last video, we talked about the Hulk mixed with Venom, and it was pretty terrifying, but now we get to take a look at Venom Thanos, aka Poison Thanos. Less green, but definitely more mean. First appearing in Edge of Venomverse issue 2, this race of symbiotes called the Poisons were just infecting everybody. Heroes, villains, anybody with power, they're a fan of that. They wanted to suck that power from them. They all lived in the Hive, comfortably, where a Poison Thanos ruled over them. In any version, he always likes to rule. Doesn't matter, even if he's all poison and gooey. He was the second in command, and once Thanos sent out a battalion of poisons, he learned about the multiverse and its existence, and of course, now that he knew about it, he wanted to conquer it. This guy just doesn't stop. Number 5. Cancerverse Thanos. What a name, Cancerverse, okay? Also known as Earth 10011, is a reality where life overcame death. Which sounds amazing at first, like on paper, you're like, oh, this sounds beautiful, can I go there? Don't do it. Nope. In reality, these horrible elder gods have now taken over. These gods called the Many-Angled Ones have now taken out the living and turned them into their personal army of the dead. Nice. When our 616 Inhumans launched the T-Bomb, it detonated during a battle with Vulcan and Black Bolt, causing this breach, or a bridge rather, to said Cancerverse. Is that Asgard? No, it's Cancerverse. Let's get out of here. That sucks. So naturally, the corrupted ones on that world wanted to invade our 616 universe, where death is, still a concept. So the Guardians of the Galaxy plus Thanos went into Cancerverse and started fighting back. They allied themselves with the remaining machine resistance led by the Vision. There are only a few good guys left in that universe. Evil Marvel saw that Thanos was now in his reality, and then he joined the Revengers to put a stop to the resistance. After a short battle, Thanos asked, well rather begged, to die. Marvel goes, okay, let's party, this is perfect, let's do it. So he performs the ritual to destroy death inside of Thanos, but in doing so, he summoned death into the Cancerverse. That's a no-no, you can't cheat death. Thanos is smart like in a chess way this time around, okay, it's powerful, the mind's powerful. Good plan. Number 4, MCU Thanos. I have to include Josh Brolin's Thanos because it was honestly really intimidating. He looked amazing and he won. First of all, when Infinity War kicks off, Thanos already has the Power Stone in his gauntlet, but he doesn't even need it to punch the Incredible Hulk into retirement. And then after choking the life out of Loki, he added the Space Stone into his gauntlet. This guy had 2 Infinity Stones before the title card even popped up. After seeing the trailer, I thought for sure it would have taken him both movies to collect the stones. Consider me fooled. You got me. After obtaining 5 of the Infinity Stones, he literally walked through the Avengers, pulled the Mind Stone out of Vision's head like a hangnail, and completed the mission. And then he snap hacked the universe away, so he won. We have to include him. Number 3, the Champion of Titan. In Thanos issue 10, we see a pretty exciting but concerning storyline. When the Abomination is crushing the Avengers in a fight, Sam Wilson, Captain America, is being choked out, it's intense, it doesn't look good, and then Spider-Man rolls up with Vision, Daredevil, Ironheart, Miss Marvel, and Champion Thanos. Avengers assemble. What? Thanos lands and starts to call the shots. He's telling people just to get out of the way while he rolls his wrists out. He's ready to lay people out. Now you'd think Captain America would be jealous here or concerned, but he's glad to see him. Even Abomination is excited about what's about to happen. He was wondering when the Champion of Titan was going to show up. Thanos refers to the Avengers as his friends, how lovely is that, beats the life out of Abomination, also lovely, and then he leaves a message that the world is under his protection and the crowd goes nuts. We love this, apparently, I don't know. Then the next page, it cuts to the garden and Thanos is just hallucinating. He's tripping out, all this didn't happen. You had us in the first half as well. Damn, got us again. Number 2, 20XX Thanos. Residing on Earth 15061, this version of Thanos is pretty badass. This version appeared in US Avengers 1 and 2, but he wasn't around too long, but he definitely made a mark. He's pretty similar to our main 616 Thanos, only he has 2 gauntlets this time around. 2! Instead of finding the Cosmic Cube when he arrived to Earth, he used Project Pegasus tech to make Cosmic Cube ISO gauntlets, so he got a bit more than he bargained for. And similarly to Infinity War, he killed half the population on Earth. And of course, included in that list is many of Earth's mightiest, but like I said, he was only around for those 2 issues. So what happened? He had the Cosmic Bling, I don't understand. Black Widow ended up calling the remaining Avengers and they bumped heads and figured out a way to take him down. Good ending, we love those. And finally, number 1, King Thanos. Perhaps one of the coolest versions of Thanos and one of the mightiest is of course where he wins. Thanos Volume 2, Issue 13. The cover alone is haunting. All of our heroes have fallen and Thanos stands above all of their gear. In this storyline, the Avengers have now gotten old and Thanos has only gotten stronger. And like always, he was out to impress death, so he had fun taking out pretty much every living thing in the galaxy, becoming the king of everything. Well, rather at this point, the king of nothing. At this point, he platinumed the game. The universe was wiped, he was done, he was packed out, he himself was ready to join death. So he gave a piece of the time stone to his servant, the Rider, and asked him to go back in time, boop, 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 and get younger Thanos, bring him to the future, and then get him to kill older Thanos. The time-traveled Thanos came, a fight obviously ensued, but in a Batman vs Superman-like fashion, King Thanos reminded young Thanos the name his mother was going to give him before going mad, Dion. The younger Thanos realized his whole reason of being there was to kill himself, and he was like, no man, I'm actually not on board with that. Thanks so much for asking. He then took that time stone piece and returned back to his timeline with a new goal. To avoid all of what just happened, he's like, nope, don't want that future. So Elder Thanos began to vanish while this happened, along with the entire timeline. He beat the entire universe though at one point, so you gotta admit, he's definitely number 1.
Number 10, rendered EROS powerless. It's got to be hard being the brother to Thanos. Just ask EROS, aka Star Fox, about it and I'm sure he'll tell you as much. Star Fox is often presented as being a hero in the comics, and yet despite his own reputation trying to do good at least, he has to live in Thanos' shadow. Of course, EROS has done some questionable things in the past as well, but I still can't help but feel a little bad for him. During the 1991 Infinity Gauntlet miniseries, while Thanos threatens Marvel's greatest heroes, Star Fox is taken prisoner by his brother, who basically rendered him powerless and makes him watch as he torments his fellow superhero colleagues and friends, eventually killing many of them. Though of course, they would return. That is what it's like to be the brother to the Mad Titan though. He takes the phrase of sibling rivalry to a whole new level. Number 9, kills his own servants. Thanos is not even above killing those who serve him. He has obviously without much remorse killed his own adopted daughter Gamora before in the comics, and in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, although it pained him, he also chose to sacrifice Gamora to get his way and complete his plan. The Black Order, however, are not usually people who betray Thanos, unlike his traitorous daughter. They are usually loyal to a fault, having been tested over the years by Thanos and chosen for their strength, ingenuity, and ruthlessness. However, sometimes their own greed for power gets the best of them. Such was the case when Corvus Glaive ruled the Black Quadrant in Thanos' stead and was made to end his own life upon Thanos' return for basically doing so. He was like, I was just keeping the seat warm, and Thanos was like, nah. I don't believe you, you're dead. Before there was the Black Order, by the way, there was the Butcher Squadron as well, a team which Thanos assembled but would actually choose to murder members of at random for his own reasons. Not really a guy you want to serve, I don't think. Number 8. Killed his father. Mentor is known in the comics as Thanos' father. Alars, aka Mentor, has felt deep and intense guilt for years over his son's actions. At times, Mentor has even tried to intervene to try and fix the disaster and bloodshed that Thanos has wrought. In the end, Thanos grew sick and was dying from an unknown and seemingly uncurable disease. He turned to his brilliant father, an accomplished scientist, for a cure, after exhausting every other option he could think of. Mentor was forced to help Thanos when he threatened the other scientists' lives and the lives of their families who resided on the moon where Alars was living. When pressed, however, Mentor shared that a cure would take years to find, if there even was one, and that he was happy Thanos was finally dying. He only regretted not killing his son himself years ago. This outburst resulted in Thanos having an outburst of his own, and he murdered his father in response. It's not a great relationship. Number 7. Killed his mother. He just likes to kill everyone in his family pretty much. Granted, his mother did try to kill him when he was born, so this feels almost somewhat poetic. In the series Thanos Rising, we saw more into Thanos' origins and backstory as a youngster. Here we see him become more and more obsessed with death, specifically Lady Death, starting out with a weak stomach but growing to enjoy murdering animals, other children his age, and eventually killing his own mother, searching for something that would help him find who he was. Oddly enough, he thought killing his mother Suisan would make him somehow feel like or become less of a monster? As she had threatened him with a scalpel when he was just a baby, driven mad by his appearance, he also attacked her with one, tying her up and gagging her before cutting her open. Also, what's with that sexy position that she's in when all of that's happening? That's weird. Number 6. Child killer. You wouldn't think that Thanos would make a great father, and he doesn't really. But that hasn't stopped him from siring many children throughout the galaxy and adopting others at times. Gamora is his adoptive daughter, but he also has a naturally born son named Thane. In fact, Thanos even attempted to find his son at one point during Infinity. He didn't want to find him to reconnect though, or repair a lost or severed connection. He wanted to find his son in order to kill him. Not knowing where to look, he decided the best course of action was to kill as many children within Thane's possible age group as possible. Thanos disguised this plot as one of conquest, ordering planets to pledge fealty to him and offer a tribute of the heads of their youths between the ages of 16 to 22. Number 5. Influences Thane. This doesn't sound so bad as a title for a point, until you realize just what that influence did. Thane was Thanos' son, whose mother had been an Inhuman. Before Thanos showed up, Thane was a healer and didn't know that he was Thanos' son. Thanos, in his hunt to eliminate the child, demanded the heads of Attilans and therefore the Inhumans' children. This ended with a fight where Thanos fought Black Bolt, and Black Bolt detonated a Terrigen bomb. The bomb was so massive it triggered Terrigenesis in all those who had an Inhuman lineage on the planet Earth's surface, including, you guessed it, Thane. Thane's power was death, and he instantly went from trying to save people to basically killing everyone around him in an instant. Pardon my snapping. completely unaware of what was happening. He later learned of his legacy and Thanos promised he would kill him. However, Ebony Maw betrayed his master and instead set Thane free and influenced him to accept his destiny and fight his father. Thane did this and won, trapping Thanos. Learning of his heritage and with the influence of the evil Ebony Maw, who was only there due to the fact that he was originally a member of Thanos' Black Order and was originally loyal to him, Thane became a deadly and dangerous villain over time, with power initially rivaling his father's. Number 4. Mass extermination policy. We all know Thanos as someone who is heartless, ruthless, and who kills to get closer to his one true love, Lady Death. And yet there is another reason he sometimes is known as a mass exterminator when it comes to various species and alien worlds. In the 2019 Thanos series, we see him going up against one of his greatest foes, Magus, and we see how he attempts to prevent Magus from expanding his Universal Church of Truth, a much more evil religion than it sounds, let me tell you, by killing everyone, in order to prevent Magus from ever being able to convert them. You can't convert people if they're dead. While really joining Magus' church also is not an ideal scenario anyways, killing them to prevent this is intense and cruel. In truth, Thanos has always enjoyed killing, so to him it's likely like hitting 3 birds with 1 stone. He not only gets to rob Magus of converts, but also gets to revel in death, and also gets closer to Lady Death through killing. Yay! Number 3. Brought peace to the world. If you don't know Cosmic Ghost Rider, here's the abbreviated version of his backstory. He's basically a superpowered Frank Castle from an alternate world where Thanos killed everyone. He is the power cosmic and is also a spirit of vengeance and a Ghost Rider, likely the last one. He's also been around so long and alone for so long that he's pretty mentally unstable. He was one of the last to stand against Thanos, but eventually ended up joining him because there wasn't really anyone else left to fight alongside, and he realized he couldn't beat Thanos at the end of the day. Cosmic Ghost Rider first appeared in 2016's Thanos series and would get a few mini-series of his own thereafter. His self-titled series shows him stealing baby Thanos so that he might raise him to be better, thereby preventing all the death and destruction we've come to know Thanos for. But even with Cosmic Ghost Rider's insane but well-meaning influence, we learn Thanos cannot be fixed. At first, CGR thinks he succeeded, but he later learns when he runs into Thanos from the future that his Punisher Thanos of a son has somehow grown up to be an even worse tyrant than without his influence, proving that even when people try to raise Thanos right and try to prevent him from becoming some crazy tyrant, it will still always end badly. Thanos forcefully brought peace to the world, and when others resisted his rule, he killed those who opposed him and created internment camps to keep the rebels in. Number 2. Sacrifices millions for the love of a lady. In the comics, Thanos merely wielded the Infinity Gauntlet and snapped those out of existence to simply get closer to Lady Death, who he was wooing. That's right, in the comics the snap was simply an attempt to impress his eternal crush. Killing billions just for a chance at love with someone? A chance? That's pretty terrible if you ask me. Number 1. Killed Death. If this feels like a paradox, well, it kind of is. But we need to remember, in the Marvel Universe, for Thanos anyways, death is not just a concept, but is also a person, Lady Death, his love. In an alternate universe, however, Death and Thanos have a different relationship, less of an unrequited love story, as Death is posing as Thanos' mother, until Thanos realizes that Death actually has been lying to him and takes revenge on her by killing her. This doesn't sound so terrible until you realize the ramification of this action, as Thanos does in the story. Basically, killing Death messes with the whole balance of the universe and everything, which, as we've seen in other alternate worlds like the CANCERVERSE, can be very bad. Of course, this doesn't go as terribly as the CANCERVERSE, as this happens in Earth X, an alternate world known as Earth 9997, and we at least don't have the influence of the many angled ones in this alternate world to worry about.
Starting us off in at number 10, he murdered his mother. Nothing like Parasite to start off a list, am I right? Parasite is one of the many awful things that Thanos has done over the years. He straight up murdered his own mother. We got to see this in action in the Thanos Rising story arc in 2013, where we got to see a bunch of flashbacks of Thanos' life when he was young. In one scene, he decides to rationalize why he has such a bloodlust, and assumes it may be genetic, since his mother, upon seeing him when he was born, attempted to murder him. Thanos was born with something called Deviant Syndrome. The Deviants are longtime enemies of his race, the Titans, and they look drastically different than the Titans. So naturally his mother despised him because of this, pretty much rejecting him altogether. She is sent to a mental institution because of it. So in this scene, Thanos approaches her and she's strapped down to a table. He begins to dissect her alive, his reasoning being that he must remove the insanity from her, all while apologizing that she didn't succeed in trying to kill him when he was born. Luckily his father and brother weren't as cruel, but growing up Thanos didn't get a whole lot of love from his fellow people because of how he looked, and also eventually how he acted. In at number 9, God. Instead of something morally deviant, for this number we're going with something super tacky that the Mad Titan pulled off at the beginning of the 1991 Jim Starlin George Perez comic, The Infinity Gauntlet. You know, the comic that the MCU Infinity War film was loosely based on. In it, Thanos declares himself a god, and then builds this ridiculous structure out of stone in order to give himself an unnecessary ego boost, and to show off to Mephisto, who's really just going along with being Thanos' humble servant as a means of figuring out how he can take advantage of the situation, since Thanos is so clearly mentally unstable and full of insecurities that his newfound powers are overcompensating for. Gotta love Mephisto. Anywho, Thanos pulls a Kanye West, becoming a self-proclaimed god, and everyone's just like, ugh, Thanos, stop it, go away. And at number 8, he cursed Deadpool. How can you curse Deadpool? So Thanos has it bad for Mistress Death, to the point where he'll pretty much do anything to get with her. This includes taking out any competition for her heart. Does Death even have a heart? Anywho, during the Deadpool vs Thanos comics, we learn that Death has the hots for Deadpool. Can you blame her? That doesn't go over well with Thanos, who decides rather than killing Deadpool and therefore letting him be with Death forever, he curses the Merc with a mouth, making him immortal so that he'll never truly be able to be with Death. Talk about some major jealousy issues. That's not the only childish behavior he's exhibited in the comics though. And at number 7, Temper Tantrum. In the Infinity Gauntlet comic, towards the beginning of the story, Thanos gets really peeved that Death isn't giving him the attention or admiration he thinks he deserves, after wiping out half of all living things in her name, as well as torturing his brother Eros and his granddaughter Nebula for her. More on that later though. After Death doesn't seem to care, Thanos throws a bit of a temper tantrum that really shakes up the whole universe. Literally. His rage manifests into a massive wave of energy that travels throughout space, destroys planets, manages to irritate Galactus, cuts Asgard off from the rest of the universe, and then hits Earth hard. It wipes out all of the West Coast. This even throws the planet out of orbit. So yeah, talk about a nasty little hissy fit. And at 6, he murdered the Gardener. Throughout the years in the comics, Thanos has exhibited a particular creativity when it comes to murdering his foes. While we could literally go through a list of all the terrible deaths he causes in the big battle that takes place in Infinity Gauntlet, or literally most of the other murders from his past in Thanos Rising and like all of the other comics that he's been in, one murder, aside from his mother's, really stands out for how cruel and sadistic it was. We're talking about the Gardener, one of the elders of the universe who was in possession of the Time Gem. The Gardener had used the gem to create a beautiful lush garden in the blue area of the moon, but when Thanos came a knockin', he used the Gardener's plants against him, literally murdering him with vines that ripped throughout his body and came out of his orifices, including his eye sockets. It's not pretty. Thanos even admits that he feels a certain amount of shame for doing this, turning the Gardener's greatest gift into the instrument of his destruction. But clearly he didn't feel that bad about it. And at 5, Terexia. In the original 1991 Infinity Gauntlet comic, Thanos' actions are all motivated out of a desire to be worthy of the entity Death, Mistress Death, whom he is madly in love with and obsessed with. Death had commanded Thanos to help her balance the universe, and after a few failed attempts, he sets his sights on collecting all of the Infinity Gems to do so. But when he wipes out half of all living things, which in the comic happens before the big showdown between him and all of our heroes, Death still shows disinterest in him, which severely pisses off the Mad Titan. So what does he do? He attempts to make Death jealous by creating a female companion, named Terexia, who basically just looks like a female carbon copy of himself. I mean, he does have narcissistic personality disorder, so can you blame him? Anywho, she becomes disposable of sorts, when Nebula gets her hands on the gauntlet and teleports Thanos and his carbon copy lady somewhere in deep space. Thanos, when creating Terexia, forgot to give her the ability to not need oxygen to breathe, or just to like not need to breathe to live. So In deep space, she dies. But it's like no big deal for the Mad Titan. He doesn't seem to really grieve her all that much in the long run. Up next, number 4, he bartered with a baby. Thanos deploys other tactics from time to time when getting what he wants. It ain't just entirely murder and genocide, friends. In this instance, when trying to get the space and reality gems in the comics, he does something a little sneakier. At that time, the Collector and the Runner were the ones who possessed these stones, so Thanos heads over to the Collector first, and promises him that he can trade him something amazing for his collection if he can have the stone. When the Collector considers it, Thanos seeks out the Runner, then uses the time stone he acquired from the Gardener to age the Runner. The Runner, whose whole shtick is running throughout the universe using the Space Gem's abilities, is aged, but then Thanos shrinks him down into a baby. He then takes this baby Runner and offers to trade him to the Collector for the reality gem. But this isn't just a case of some sneaky bartering. Thanos then reveals after he gets the stones that the spell he cast on the Runner to make him a baby is just temporary, meaning he basically scammed the Collector to get the stone. And at number 3, conquering planets. Perhaps one of the most jarring scenes in Avengers Infinity War took place on Gamora's home planet, when we got to see her origins with her adoptive father play out. In the scene, Gamora is forcibly separated from her mother as Thanos and his army take over the planet. Now, before getting the Infinity Stones, Thanos attempted to achieve his goal of balancing out the universe by invading planets, lining up all of their inhabitants, and then having his army literally shoot them point blank. The worst part was, where he lined these people up was entirely random, so you basically had a 50-50 chance of surviving or not. By eliminating half of the population of a planet, he helped prevent the resources on that planet from being depleted too quickly, by, removing half of the people who would use them to, live. It's something he admitted to doing on his home planet Titan in the MCU as well. Now, what he does to Titan in the comics is an entirely different story and also just as terrible. This is a scene that, despite Thanos' connection with young Gamora, looks like it was pulled right out of a history book. The similarities to the Holocaust are a little nerve-wracking, and make it a crime that hits a little too close to home for some. Moving on to number 2, Nebula's torture. Sure, if you thought the torture Thanos put his daughter Nebula through in the MCU was rough, wait till you see what he did to her in the comics. Now in the comics, Nebula is his granddaughter, and the two of them don't have the nicest of histories together. So in an act to impress Mistress Death, Thanos traps Nebula in what can only be described as a living hell. She's kept withered and in a constant state of absolute pain, to the point of death, but she can never die. It's incredibly sadistic. She's present at his floating fortress when Adam Warlock and all of his rallied superhero and celestial forces attack the Mad Titan. She just watches on. She's floating there seething with a desire for vengeance, and manages to take advantage of the situation. When Thanos thinks he's won, having defeated these enemy forces, she acts, grabbing the gauntlet from his hand and claiming it as her own. She then reverses all of the deaths that Thanos has caused and banishes him to deep space. The story doesn't end there, but it is satisfying as hell to see her come back from that awful state to take revenge on the Mad Titan. And last but not least, in at number 1, the Snap. Obviously, eliminating half of all living things is, pretty darn bad. That's genocide on a mass scale. While the visuals in the comics may not be as gruesome or volatile as some of the other things that we've seen Thanos do in the panels, it's still the most damage that he's ever caused. We get a better sense of the crippling pain the Snap led to more so in the MCU, as we witness some of our favorite superheroes being dusted in front of our eyes. I don't think any of us have gotten over Peter Parker falling into Tony Stark's arms saying, "Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good." It made the ending of Infinity War that much more tragic and traumatizing to moviegoers who had expected to see the good guys win at the end of the film. But hey, I guess we're hoping we'll get that relief from ENDGAME.